Hello, y'all. So I don't think I have any announcements in this space. If you did see the community post, these images here that we're going to talk about today for the limiting beliefs, there was actually a mini read on these on Instagram. So if you do want to check out Instagram and give me a follow there, you can find me at the Temporal Taurus. I don't always post, I don't always like do runoffs of posts where I do videos on the pick a cards that I do on Instagram. So there usually are different messages there, but I don't know, the other day or yesterday when I was sitting down to sort of ruminate on these like blockages, these images came out for the pick a card reading that I had yesterday, and then it just kind of downloaded in like, okay, this is what's going on with this group, this is what's going on with this group, and so on and so forth. And so I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're getting to peek in on what these limiting beliefs and blockages are already. So if you have checked out the Instagram, then you kind of already know what we're peeking into today in terms of your limiting beliefs and diving into your shadow a little bit. This is a shadow work reading, so I don't know entirely what's going to come up in this space. Sometimes shadow work is stuff that's buried beneath the surface, or it's in our subconscious a little bit, things that need to kind of come up to the surface and be in our awareness so that we know what it is that we need to tackle. Oftentimes, though, I also feel as though the blockages and fears and things that are holding us back are actually things that we already do have an awareness of, typically. But we can kind of dig into the why behind why these are kind of in the way and what needs addressed in that space. Because sometimes there are things that kind of, I guess, hinder us from moving forward, and we don't even necessarily understand why it is that we feel the way that we do in a certain space, or what it is that correlated us into the, or from the past that correlates into the present, that's kind of keeping us stuck, essentially. So I think what we'll do, since this is a meteor read, that's a mouthful. I think we'll just go ahead and dive right into it. Before we begin, though, if you are interested in setting up a private reading with me, you can shoot me an email at thetemporaltaurus@outlook.com. All right, y'all, let's move forward. Here's group 1, group 2, group 3, and group 4. Group 1. I talked a little bit in the Instagram post attached to this particular card about, do you ever find that you gather like little bits of information and you don't understand really why it is that you hang on to these pieces of information? And this is kind of a metaphor in this space. I recently I saw a short, I think it was, about how pearls that are formed within oysters are actually, or clams or whatever, I don't know necessarily where they're formed, but it's not actually sand that gets into the shell. It's a foreign object of some kind, and it's something that doesn't belong environmentally in that in the oyster space, right? So then what it does is essentially it encases that grime or dirt with a pearl, and that is how a pearl is formed. And I found that fascinating that it came up in your space. I also find it interesting that for some reason or another, I can probably gather, I don't know, 100 bits of information, more than that realistically, in a day and not really hold on to them. But for some reason, that story in how a pearl is formed was something that really stuck with me and made me, I don't know, it just felt, it felt like a metaphor, I suppose. And it, you know, it's interesting because like I hung on to it, and then am now using it in a read. And I think I've actually used this analogy a couple times now at this point, in terms of making something sort of beautiful from something that is the opposite of that, right? Or using things that are sort of not supposed to be in our environment, that maybe make us feel a certain way, or I don't know, put us in a situation in which we have to sort of toughen ourselves because of an experience. The oyster here in this space, though, and the work that's being done here, is a lot about outward appearance. Interestingly enough, because I feel as though inside of the shell there are these beautiful things forming, right? And unless you open up the shell, you're not going to see those beautiful things come out. And so this space has a lot to do with sort of keeping the beauty within us inside self, but it also has a lot to do with putting in the effort to work on the things within self that are an insecurity, impacting how we feel perceived in the outside world. So I do think that this has something to do with putting in effort in terms of feeling good about ourselves and feeling confident about ourselves. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to look a certain way, but I would argue that if you don't feel good about how you look, then there are things that maybe there's a relationship with self that needs tweaked. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into how are we going to structure this. Actually, let's do it as why. We can do it as what, why, and then how to move forward. How about that? What are the limiting beliefs in this space? What are the limiting beliefs in this space? I am using the Hermetic Tarot today. I felt like this is, it's sort of like whatever the vibe is, this deck hits. And it looks really cool on camera too, so I like that. It's kind of wicked. Wicked, wicked. Had to kick it. I'm not shy, so I asked for the digits. Sorry. On the bottom of the deck, you have the Empress. Yeah. I don't think that is coincidental. What are the blockages? Okay, so there isn't an... It's interesting because Justice comes up, and it's coming up in the upright, but in this deck it is labeled as the Daughter of the Lord of Truth. And it's talking a lot about balance. And I actually feel that in this space is that there needs to be balance. And the balance has a lot to do, well, there's a number of things that are coming up actually in this space. There is some sort of, Okay, so it's coming out as though what the blockage is sort of a scarcity mindset. And this can actually put us in a state in which anything that we can find comfort in, we will. I'm going to trigger warning you for a second. This is a space in which there could be comfort eating. Um, because everything else around us might be imbalanced, and so or we may not be receiving validation in other spaces, and this is when some of us can seek to food to sort of feel comfort. If you're feeling distressed in a situation and you begin to see yourself sort of eating a lot more frequently, this would be something that would exist in this space. Other things that exist in the scarcity mindsets is just incessantly feeling like there is not enough, or we don't have enough, or we are not enough, or that we need to essentially just continue to do more work. I might sneeze. Maybe. Am I gonna edit out my sneeze? Probably not. So, bless me. Okay. Um, this is, though, there's a lot of passion in this space. So I think that something that kind of trips you up is that you're a very emotionally like giving person and very emotionally fulfilling for others, and have honestly a whole lot to give in terms of your emotional fulfillment. But these things here in the center, this Five of Pentacles would be sort of that scarcity mindset. And then here with the Ace of Wands and the Two of Wands, this is more about the Ace of Wands is sort of like a kind of like a passionate new beginning, sort of, or it's also in this deck it talks about being a root, like the root of the situation. And for here it could be that at the root, I think that there's just a lot of like sensuality, or there's a lot sort of that wants to be kind of brought to the surface that feels restricted within the scarcity mindset, and it has a whole lot to do with how we feel about ourselves. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be somebody who struggles with physical appearance in this space, but I would argue that there are other spaces today in terms of like not feeling good enough that would tap into a different area of not feeling good enough. And in this space, I do feel like this has a lot to do with feeling like our physical body holds us back from moving forward. And that's kind of been the energy that's come into this place, and understanding also that this could be an area in which it requires work in order to kind of get into this Empress state. I would argue too that there probably are a lot of things that do come relatively easy for you in this space, or easier than other things. And then when it's hard, and it's another thing here as well, when it's difficult, then there's a higher probability of giving up. And I think I don't know if it's just kind of this need for instant gratification that exists in this space. Hang on, let me get a drink. But it could be, because that comes in with this scarcity mindset, right? And kind of what's going in here. Now, being that you do have a high emotional intelligence, which is coming in here with that Queen of Cups, this would indicate that you probably have been through quite a bit in terms of being able to build that emotional intellect. And that kind of can get you tripped up in these other spaces, because I do feel in this space there is a knowing, like, you know what needs to be done in this space, but I think it's about understanding the execution and understanding that the execution is going to require effort in this space, and knowing that in order for me to get out of this scarcity mindset and into feeling into this Empress set, like, it's going to take work in this space. I think it's interesting too that in the Justice card, or I'm sorry, In the Empress card here, you also have the scales of justice sort of at the top of the imagery. And and everything in this is balanced, right? There's a whole lot of symmetry that exists within the Empress. She has a balance of body, mind, and soul. And I think that for you, Collective One, I think you're good on sort of understanding some of the other areas in which to build upon in terms of mind and soul. I would argue that mind might still be something that is needing tweaking, because when our mindset is in this scarcity space, then we tend to really just keep wanting more, but without having to do more for it. And so mindset in this space would, to get you into a more abundant mindset, would actually see the things that you would need to do in order to work towards those goals. Let me give you, now why are we in this space? Let's find that out. Why are these the blockages? You have the Nine of Cups, the Eight of Cups. Let's see here. Six of Cups. Oh, it's just like so emotional. Nine of Pentacles. And the Knight of Cups. You see that all of these are, I mean, I guess the Nine of Pentacles would be, I suppose it would be a card that does have a bit more action, but I would actually argue that Wands and Swords are more action oriented, and the others are more about, well, Pentacles can be about building foundations as well, but Cups in particular is specifically about emotions and the emotional body. Now, I think that you have that in spades here. Okay, so the why, I think that we kind of already touched on this, is that how do I say this? This Nine of Pentacles, okay? It's interesting because within this scarcity mindset, I actually feel that there is a lot that comes easy for you, or comes easier for you. And then the things that are a little bit more difficult or that require more effort, these things that might put you in, oh my goodness. So interesting, y'all. This is on the bottom of the deck. This is a Seven of Swords, and in the Hermetic Tarot, it is the Lord of Unstable Effort. Interesting. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't think this is just about physical things either. I think it's a lot of the physical realm, actually, because here you are in this sort of, you're very abundant, right, in the emotional realm, and especially in the emotional realm, and sort of in that internal dialogue and internal, not necessarily dialogue, but intellect, emotional intellect. You are pretty up there in that space, but if it requires effort, it's sort of a kind of not wanting to do the work space. Reasons that this could exist, an absence of discipline, neglect could be another reason, because in terms of like, when there's an absence of discipline, there's typically also an absence of attention, so you could have been raised in a space where it was just a bit neglectful in terms of like, just basic care, having discipline, or certain routines and things like that. And without that structure, it can be, everything then can feel like it's easy or it's difficult, because your psyche was sort of built in a space that the way in which you would have had to work for something would have probably been required more emotional effort than physical effort. Does that make sense? So you have a really strong sense of emotional intellect in this space, but not quite as strong of a sense of physical effort. This is like structures that need sort of attacked, and if it feels, yeah, it just is in that space of like, if it feels difficult, I don't want to do it. And I think that what's unfortunate in this space too, group one, is that this is actually just a huge blockage for you. This is the Ten of Swords here. This is causing so much internal conflict for you and feeling as though it's kind of keeping you in this oyster position and keeping you in this space of the beauty within you sort of being masked or hidden from the world around you, because your insecurities are sort of projecting out that you feel some type of way about yourself, and therefore and that can be misread, that can be misinterpreted, that can come off where actually you can have this like really beautiful emotional internal world, but because you are already pushing people away or running or being in this space of how you feel about self, this like Ten of Swords energy can actually come off to other people as like as a defense or an armor, or a reason to not want to like a reason to not want to dig deeper beneath the surface with you, or also it could come out very apparent as well. It could be that first, in some spaces certain insecurities are very loud actually, and so it can also put you in a position where other people have sort of already kind of labeled you based on this insecurity that you have about self. Also, group one, this type of insecurity is very easily manipulated in certain spaces. This is a very strong insecurity for women in particular, okay? Because we live in a system and a society that is consistently placing women in particular on a hierarchy in terms of their physical appearance. And so when we don't feel good in that space, or we don't have a good relationship with self in that space, we can almost feel as though we are not a good enough woman. And this can be a space that can really cause us quite a bit of heartbreak and quite a bit of betrayal, because one of the more attractive qualities in people tends to be their level of confidence. So I think that is, this came out on the bottom of the deck, is something that is really, that this is being, it's sort of, I left this out and I didn't know why, but I thought that in this space I would have the elephant in the room, and when it came up that I needed to like address the elephant in the room, that I would pull it out. But I literally I was like, we're just going to keep the elephant in the room out. I didn't really know that I was going to have a whole, I don't know, moment with it. But I think that is the elephant in the room. And in some ways, for some of us, we can actually feel like this. I mean, not to be, I know that's probably not the most appropriate way to say it, but I've personally been in this space of feeling this way. So I feel like we feel this at times, And then it's just, you know, it's kind of like we're already defeated before anything has even begun because of how we feel about the way we appear. So what can you do moving forward? Well, I think you kind of know what you need to do in this space. And it's just, I've talked a lot about unraveling patterns of behavior, right? And it is like having a little dainty chain and then just picking at that a little bit by bit, before it just kind of unravels, okay? And that's how we change a behavioral pattern. And this one's a beast. I'm not going to deny that. I think my highest weight, I'm 5'3", okay? My highest weight was 240 pounds. And I cannot even begin to tell you how much I regret that I allowed myself to get in that space, because it did not do wonders for my body. And living with those consequences right on, you know, you can't necessarily hide them in certain spaces. That's a beast. It's a beast. It's a lot. All right. What to do moving forward? This guy wanted to come out. So did this guy. Two of Cups, Queen of Wands. What else? This guy popped out. Queen of Pentacles. Princess of Pentacles. What else do we got? And the Ace of Pentacles. That's interesting. On the bottom of the deck, you have the Devil in reverse. Which interesting is, like, it's almost as though the advice is actually to, like, relinquish control. And so for some of you, it's going to require quite a bit of, it's an investment. I think that's what all these pentacles are trying to say. Like, this is an investment that you're going to have to make, and you're going to have to be passionate about it. And because it's impacting this Two of Cups energy. Two of Cups is like a union card, right? It even says on this Lord of Love, right? This could be impacting your connections and how you feel in connections and how you are treated in connections. And this is, it doesn't necessarily just have to be in romance, but it is also that, right? And understanding that this is investment. Now, I just want to hit really quick because someone commented on my Instagram post and had said something about taking some methods that were honestly just like equally detrimental. And I think that too, if you're watching this and you're in this space, like, making sure that what you're doing here is a healthy new beginning, and that it's not, there are certain things that you can do that they're just simply not sustainable, and more importantly, they're very harmful for you. So understanding certain things, if you are dealing with you know, okay, so if you're in this space here and weight is your issue, okay, the biggest thing is calorie deficit. Just, you know, it's like the biggest thing. A lot of people will argue it's exercise and this, but at the basis, abs start in the kitchen, and what you are consuming matters. How you are consuming it, how much you are consuming it. That is the biggest thing in this space. So just understanding that it's about, you know, limiting but not restricting, in my opinion. And I also would really look into maybe intermittent fasting might be something in this space. The universe just popped out here. I do think that this could be that if you attack this, you could then, everything's going to open up in this space. And I actually resonate into this collective and this particular message very strongly. And I know what I know this space very well, and I know it's very difficult to bring in that balance when you've had a certain pattern of behavior for a very long time, or you have been someone who is somewhat of like like you utilize emotions have a really big impact on the relationship that you have with your body, and it's not easy to undo or unravel. But again, it's like baby steps. If you're an all or nothing person, you have to be really honest with yourself in this space that that's not how this particular thing is attacked. And that's why the instant gratification comes in to play, because for everything that has come easy for you, it was very easy for you then to snowball that into something bigger, right? But in this space, because it's actually hard work, it's almost like walking into it defeated before even doing anything, because it's like it's sort of the mindset of wanting to go in on go on a walk once and come home a new person, and that's just not how it works. And so this is a space that what you want in this space is we're going to require discipline the most, I think. Yeah. All right, group one, that is your blockage or limiting belief within this space. If you resonated with my readings and would like to hear more readings from me in the future, we don't usually dive quite this deep or get into blockages, but it's come up a few times and been asked of me, so I decided to deliver that for those who have asked for this reading today. Many of the readings are a lot lighter than this. So do subscribe to the channel for more content in the future to tap into your collective. Thank you so much for being here, group one. Enjoy the rest of your day. Group two. I just heard that song by the Folk Implosion. It's like, I'm the one, natural one, make it easy. We can take it inside. Your blockage it is surrounding some sort of truth. So the black egg is not an energy that is necessarily concerned so much about feelings, okay? It's a lot more concerned with authenticity and the truth, okay? So in your space and in your limiting belief and blockage, there is a truth or truths or multiple truths that you are hanging on to and not stepping into. Something that is authentically you. And within this space, there could be so many things, but realistically, the elephant in the room for you, collective two, is vulnerability. And so the blockage and the limiting belief here is surrounding your vulnerability, your ability to express yourself authentically and trust it and say how you feel and what you think and what you want, and stand in that without really without regard to how others feel about what it is that you want or what your truth is. There's some sort of system perhaps that you have been bred into even, or that has been sort of systematically programmed into you as like, because you are this, you must operate this way, and you innately just don't fall into alignment with that. And so there is a part of you that feels as though you have to sort of remain encased, I guess, in this shell, I suppose, and just operate kind of systematically. But I don't think that like, for you, this has so much more to do with like raw authenticity, like the most vulnerable part of you, and really owning that as who you are, regardless of what anybody else thinks. Because there is a lot of fear surrounding, there's a lot of the throat chakra, right? In this space is just like, it's suffocating a little bit in this space. Okay, so we're going to go into the what. I think we've already kind of discussed that. Then we'll do the why, and then we'll do how to kind of move forward, okay? So what, why, how. Got it? What is the limiting belief in this space? Is this supposed to be? This kind of came out sideways. This way? It's definitely this way. What is the limiting belief in this space? These both kind of want to came out. It's going to actually be surrounding connections. Interesting. You have the King of Wands on the bottom of the deck, the Devil. Oh. And the Universe on the bottom of the deck. Hold on. You know what? I didn't check last time if I was cutting off the whole bottom. I tend to do that. Oh, we're good. Okay. What? You know, it's interesting, Collective 2, your truth has something to do with connections. It's not what I was anticipating in this space, honestly. But it looks like, okay, the reason I say that is because you have the Four of Wands in the center of your reading. The Four of Wands is sort of that ultimate, union card. Now in here it's like perfected work. This would be a connection that it's just kind of typically come up as a connection card. So this would be something where it's very fulfilling, it's very balanced, and very spiritual, meaningful connection, right? This is so strange, because how it's reading is that it's almost as though what you're holding back is how you feel about someone else in this space. And I thought this was going to be a lot different than that. So I thought I was way more prepared for this reading, Collective 2, so I'm feeling a little bit like even I'm being blindsided by this message. So you have to bear with me. But the truth that you're holding back is like your feelings essentially in a certain space, or how you feel about it's almost like when somebody is that you feel is, how do I want to say this? It's like someone who you feel is very, like, that would be a really good match for you, or that you have a lot of feelings for, or that maybe you're even just, I would argue, attracted to, because they have the King of Wands here. It doesn't necessarily have to be masculine here. That it kind of, it's almost like you run in that space. or it's like you close off in that space. The more you like them, the more you're like, nope, I'm gonna get hurt here. I don't want to. So you keep all your feelings inside. So like part of your vulnerability has a lot to do, honestly, like with your feelings towards others within connections. And it's almost like you control that so much with this devil energy, that like you have an exponential amount of self-control, actually, arguably, group two. But this sort of, it's interesting because it sort of keeps you, it's like what the truth tends to be is that you want to move forward, you want to take the risk, you want to jump into this, and then what you end up doing is jumping right into avoidant energy, with this hanged man here. Wow. That's interesting. I was not expecting that. Okay, so that's the what. So I think that the what is really about feelings, about vulnerability surrounding, it's almost like you have this sense of like, how do I express this? As though if you told somebody else how you feel about them, then that gives them control. Because you have such a strong control of self that it's almost like you're passing the baton if you tell somebody else how you feel about them. That's interesting. Huh. Okay, let's get into the why is that a thing? Oh, you know what is okay, so I wasn't expecting that in this space. However, if you go to the Instagram thing, your song is House on Fire by Sia was the song, and it was specifically the line like I want to, it's like, baby, I want to breathe you in like oxygen kind of thing. And it was like, I want you. I don't know the whole lyric. I don't even know the song that well, honestly. It just popped up in my head. And I had to actually like look up what the actual lyrics were because the only part that I heard was in my head was like, I want to breathe you in like oxygen, like oxygen. So you'll have to check out the Instagram post as well that has some information on the song and things like that. Okay, let's see. Why are we in this space? What is the why behind this? It's well, paint me green and call me Gumby. We're not gonna when's the last time you heard that? We're not gonna pull that card out. Okay, so why is this a limiting belief for collective 2? Why is this a limiting belief for collective 2? There's that universe on the bottom of the deck again, and the Empress, and the Devil. Interesting. Why? There could be some sort of limiting belief within self. Okay, it's almost as though it's interesting, collective 2, because it's like you tap into these connections in which I think that you need to be aware that if you're tapping into a connection with somebody, you are in alignment with them. That's just how it works. So if you are in a connection with somebody, there you have an alignment with that person. Otherwise, you wouldn't have any connection with them at all. So you need to be aware of that element, A. But also it's like you're tapping into, it's kind of, it's like feeling, this is so weird. Hold on, let me clarify a couple cards, okay? Because I'm hung up on this Nine of Cups thing, and I don't necessarily. Why is the Nine of Cups here? This, what? The Seven of Wands. Oh, okay. Okay, so I kind of was in that, going in the right space. Yeah, this is about just feeling like we don't live up to the, it's almost like you get into a connection with somebody and then you just kind of set them up on a pedestal, and then the further that you put them up on the pedestal, it's like you almost shrink yourself in that space and then don't feel like you live up to that. And then it's kind of, it's interesting though, because it just feels like you keep all of this to yourself. And I don't even think that the people dealing with you would even remotely be aware of this fact or this truth about you. That it's like the reason that that you aren't connecting in is has a lot to do, like, it's almost as though you would choose connections that were a little bit easier than having to face anything that would have to, that you would have to look at yourself more authentically, or that you would have to step into being vulnerable, or give more of yourself to. It's so it's like, I think there is an awareness, or I don't even know if it's an awareness, because there is a part of you that if you perceive something within a connection as requiring work, this just feels very subconscious, honestly, that you just don't, you kind of like, nah, goodbye, and just check out, and don't want to do the work and don't want to, like, it's a little bit, realistically, like, I'm sorry to say it this way, collective too, but this comes off very my way or the highway. And it's like the opposite of compromise. So it's like you could be dealing with somebody, like, say, I really feel like the Empress in this situation, or Emperor, it doesn't matter, but this is coming in for some reason the opposite. But I think this is the people and how you view them. So you view them in these, kind of putting them up on these pedestals, like this emperor or empress status, and then it's don't want to, don't feel like you maybe don't add up to that, or there's just some element of seeing this as work, and then you just kind of internalize. And I don't think that this, it's almost interesting, because I feel like if you knew that actually what would kind of bring you into this more abundant energy here, and give you this new beginning here, is actually turning this kind of upside down, coming out of this Hanged Man energy, and really just being a little bit more passionate, and speaking your truth in these situations. I just really did not anticipate this to be about a connection. I thought this was going to be about, your internal blockages within yourself, and like, it's, and I don't know, like, deeper than that, why that is. Obviously, within this space, there's some element of self-doubt. You may connect into I think group 4's reading is going to be about self-doubt. So if you do feel some sense of self-doubt, you could maybe resonate into that pile as well, because I know we're going to talk about that. So, but that's kind of the why. And I feel like you kind of know already what it is that you're going to realistically need to do moving forward, but we'll dive into it. Like, you're obviously going to have to speak your truth, but I mean, like, that's the elephant in the room. Okay. Let's see. How can group 2 move forward in this space? 9 of Pentacles. A little bit of work on stability. King of Pentacles. Princess of Cups. That's the Page of Cups. And this makes sense in this space. Group 2, because the Page of Cups, this is the Princess of Cups, but in traditional tarot, it's called the Page of Cups. And the Page of Cups comes in and he's like this gesture looking, he doesn't know what he's doing, but he's in the space of emotions, right? So he's here to offer his cup of love, but he's a little bit immature. And so all he has to offer is a fish, but he's trying. Okay. So, this could just be baby steps, okay? If like vulnerability is super scary for you, then it's just realistically just taking baby steps. And I talk a little bit about this. I talked about this in the last reading, but I'll talk about it in your reading as well. That remember that unraveling a behavioral pattern is sort of like undoing a chain, right? You have a chain that's all knotted up and it's like you have to pick at it and pick at it and pick at it, and then finally it'll unravel, right? But if you were just to, just straight yank on the thing, then it would just get worse. So, yeah, this, hold on, let me get to the rest of the, you do have the Knight of Swords as well as the Hermit on the bottom of the deck. Okay, so okay, this does talk a little bit too about really kind of it, even though you're in the Hanged Man energy in the other space, the Hermit energy is a little bit different than that, because in the Hermit energy, it's about it's more so about like kind of dissecting self, whereas the Hanged Man is kind of being in a space of like just breathing a little bit, okay? But the Hermit space is a lot more analytical, okay? So going within to kind of assess, okay, this is really just assessing, it's more like accepting your truth internally and what it is that you feel in this space. And I hope we have the Knight of Wands coming out here too. Yeah, like assessing what you feel in this space and then kind of just taking the steps to kind of move forward. It is also too, there's a little bit about seeing this space, this Hermit space, the Hermit, Seven of Cups, and Eight of Swords. These are all kind of connected here, and over here these are all connected, and then these are connected here, okay? So over here in this space, the Hermit, the Seven of Cups, and the Eight of Swords, okay? This is about, this is like internal conflict here, but this is also like zooming out and looking at the, like, why am I in this space? Why do I feel this way? Why, where, what is it that's holding me back from saying how I feel in this space? Like, what is the fear that I have here? Why can I not put myself out there more? Why am I not trusting my intuition in this space, and really looking at this situation from sort of a bird's eye view a little bit, and to kind of understand what it is, what fear is really holding you back in this space from moving forward. And then over here on this side, then with the King of Swords, the Knight of Pentacles, and the Nine of Pentacles, this space is here about like making decisions, and then putting those, these are all like movement cards, okay? Knights are like moving, right? So this would be moving a little bit more passionately in terms of our truths, right? The things that we believe in. And oh my goodness, there is a fly in this space that is just like, it's literally flying in my face the entire time I'm trying to channel this. And I might just lose my mind with these flies that have gotten into the house. I just may lose it. Goodness. Why does this have to happen in the middle of a reading? Like, I don't mind. Anyway, just when it's literally flying in my face, that's not going to be easy to channel with. Okay, sorry. Maybe they're... You know, you might distract yourself from focusing on these things. I don't know, because that just happened in this space, you know? But this is about building those... Hold on. Oh my goodness. This is gonna... Okay, we're done. That's what we're doing to your fear, okay? Just snuffing it out. Okay, so, and then this space over here, I don't know if if I was able to continue my thought process. I'm so sorry. And I don't edit these either, so we're all just in this in a moment together, just me trying to figure out how to slaughter a fly. Okay, Knight of Swords, Knight of Pentacles, and then Nine of Pentacles. Yeah, these are forward movement cards, so this is just making the choice. It's interesting because I feel like these two should be flipped, but I kind of feel like what happens sometimes in this space for you is that like you're like, okay, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna do this, and then you make a choice and you do it, and you're like, holy shit, no. And so it's like you kind of have to flip these a little bit and go into this internalizing before you go into this space and really assessing like, how is it that you feel, you know? And then you have the Knight of Wands and Princess of Cups here in the sort of at the center of the read. So this, again, it is like where these things are a little bit more easy. I would argue a bit here in this space that you may be more comfortable in physical connections or even require that to sort of get into this space of emotion. And this is arguably not the most healthy way forward, because like some of us need to have this before we can have this, you know what I mean? And so it's kind of, when you take this out of it, this is sort of a crutch, right? This physical space of connecting into physical connections. And also this can become dangerous territory too, because you could feel something for somebody, maybe just like fleeting, rush into this like physical connection with them and then realize that there's not a whole lot of emotional fulfillment in that space. Throat chakra is something that is like really hitting in this space as well. I think that there are just some truths that need to be expressed, that you just kind of need to, it's almost like getting it off your chest, or you just need to be true to yourself in these scenarios and in these situations on what it is that you really want, and finding a way to be more comfortable expressing what it is that you're feeling and what is, you don't have to, you don't have to lay yourself down on a chopping block either and be like, oh, I'm afraid to communicate. You don't have to say it that way, but you can be like, you make me nervous. I'm attracted to you. I feel this way, or I don't know, any number of things, I guess. But I also do feel for you, group 2, that you may resonate into the group 4 space as well, that talks a little bit about self-doubt. Actually, I think many of us probably in these spaces will resonate into the group 4 space, but because obviously there's some kind of reason, there's a little bit more of the why on a deeper sort of subconscious level that is deciding for self that it's not good enough to receive more, or to trust more. This is a lot about trust issues in this space, really about trusting self and trusting others and trusting that the people around us are, you know, that some people around us are, they do mean well, you know. Okay. All right, group 2. We don't normally dive this deep in readings, but it's come up a lot in questions recently, and so I expressed that I would provide a shadow reading for those who had been asking for it. Most of the content is a little bit lighter than this, a little bit more for entertainment and not so serious. So if you do resonate into this, though, and would like to support me, you can like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for being here, group 2. Enjoy the rest of your day. Group 3. I want to talk about me. I want to talk about I want to talk about number 1. Me, my phone, what I think, what I want, like what I feel. This is, I feel like you might be a collective that has a history of just like kind of putting yourself in the corner. Nobody puts baby in a corner. Group 3. Where it's like you feel more comfortable kind of like behind the curtain, you know, which is interesting because I feel like in your space, your blockage or your limiting belief is that you have things to express, or you actually would do really well putting yourself out there more, and that your sort of blockage is doing it. But we'll see. What is the limiting belief for group 3? Okay. That one popped out here. Princess of Swords. The Star. This guy wanted to come out. The Devil. She the Devil. The Four of Cups. What else we got? That Blasted Tower. This, I swear, was this in your group the other day? I can't get over. Sometimes this space is really humorous, but this deck it just cracks me up because it goes with the vibe. So whatever emotion is kind of tapping into the space or whatever energy, it flows right with it. I love this deck. And the funny thing is that if the Blasted Tower is coming out, then I know it's going to be a little bit wittier of a read, because just the fact that it says the Blasted Tower, which consistently reminds me of how my grandma used to, like, that blasted thing. You know? So when I see the tower come out in this deck, it's like that Blasted Tower. It's like, ugh, why are we here? Like, what is this thing here for? Which is actually good, because in the last space, it was just a little bit heavier. On the bottom of the deck, you have 9 of Wands, 4 of Wands, 6 of Pentacles. Okay. What is the limiting belief in this space? This sense of self, this like putting yourself out there kind of thing, I think it could be restricted in some space within connections, or has been, or it's almost as though you kind of been in the shadow of somebody else a little bit in this space, and perhaps even become accustomed to that, of sort of being of service to somebody else, or being of service to somebody other than self in this space quite often. And it's, you have so many things internally, so many things that that you have sort of that you're kind of holding on to, a lot of resilience, a lot of strengths actually that you have that you're kind of just keeping into yourself and not really putting out there. So I think the what again is like this peacocking energy, right? About putting yourself out there. Now, when I did the Instagram reading the other day on this, because I did do sort of a small reading on Instagram for these messages today, and the reading there, I had expressed that I could not find the peacock in the Wild Unknown Spirit Animal deck. I was reading the book before putting together like a message for this reading, and I could not find this thing anywhere. I went through the whole book twice looking for the darn peacock, and I had to go into another room where the cards were and look at this little symbol on the top here, and I couldn't find it. And so that I could find it. And then I went out and I opened the book and it opened right to the peacock. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, is everything a metaphor? But it really was that the peacock was sort of hiding. And then after having to dig to find where the peacock was, it finally came out and was like, hello, here I am. And that's kind of like what's going on here, is that there's just a lot of digging to kind of get to your center a little bit. But within that center, there's a whole world that hasn't been tapped into, or at least it hasn't been exposed to the world around them. And your message had a lot to do with exposure, of like putting yourself out there. And the fear surrounding that is like, I don't want all eyes on me because I'm very used to being sort of, it's like you have main character energy that has been playing on the sidelines for a while, kind of. So I think that's like I think that's the what that exists in your space. Now we're going to get into why and how to move forward. Why is this a blockage for group 3? Why is this a blockage for group 3? Why? Bottom of the deck, the Hermit, King of Pentacles, Five of Wands, and I'm going to pull out this Temperance card as well. The why. There's a little bit of a scarcity mindset in this space, but also I feel like it's just being focused on, sort of being focused on the requirement of external validation, and also being in a space that is like kind of prioritizing other people over yourself, especially connections. So you kind of become, it's almost like if you move into a connection with somebody, you just become a servant to that person in some capacity, as opposed to stepping in as yourself. So it's almost as though the why in this space is that this connection with self, it's almost like you, hold on, how do I express this? It's like your self-identity is wrapped up in your relationship with others. So if you don't have, say you don't have a partner, then like having a partner becomes the forefront of your focus, and like needing to have a partner, and how to get a partner, and how to sort of, honestly, it's almost like interesting thing about peacocking realistically in some capacity is that we mold ourselves to sort of fit into the perception of what we feel others would like us to be, right? And so it's almost as though there's some sort of control within self that is missing in this space. To feel whole within self is missing in this space. And then moving into these connections in these spaces with other people and feeling as though the way in which we can sort of feel whole is to feel accepted by the version of us that we create for someone else to approve of, rather than really moving into our own authenticity and being our sort of, this is a exotic, mystical, beautiful bird, right? That takes up space at that, because when the peacock, stretches its wings, it's got a big wingspan, and it takes up a lot of space, and arguably it's really difficult not to look at the peacock. So I feel like the elephant in the room, that's this guy, is seeing yourself as a separate, whole, individual, regardless of who agrees with you or who sees you the way that you see yourself, and not changing or adapting to the idea of how somebody else sees you or how someone expects you to be, and really honoring self. And then feeling comfortable with sort of stepping into, I got this death card here, right? So it's like endings are new beginnings, right? But the interesting thing about this deck is it says the child of the great transformers. So transformation energy, right? Stepping out with your wings out, like, here I am, world, this is who I am, take it or leave it. And really trusting that in self, and feeling comfortable as well with sort of putting yourself out there in a way that perhaps maybe makes you uncomfortable. It just feels like in this space, a lot of you are just of service to others and don't do a whole lot. It's like you're the type of person, okay, where it's like you have a social media account and you're probably on the thing every day looking at everybody else and reading all their things, and you don't post nothing. It was like one thing here or whatever. So you don't put yourself out there in any way. You just like watch everybody else kind of doing their things. But you have a lot inside and internalized that you could offer the world. But sort of just are like, nah, I'm good. I'm good over here being on the sidelines, being a, cheerleader. I don't want to be in the space of, I don't want eyes on me. But interesting is that it's like almost as though one of the fears is that I feel like for many of you in this space, it's like you tend to be already sort of people that receive kind of attention, or eyes are on you just because of either how you look or how you are or how you operate. So you already are in a sort of a receptive energy where people do kind of peek in on you a little bit, right? And it's almost like they have to, because you have this mysterious quality to you where you are this, like, you're like a peacock in hiding. I'm sure there are plenty of people that like, and this is no offense to certain energies or people, right, that could go into a cave and unfortunately nobody would notice, right? But if were you to do that, we would all notice. We would be like, where's the peacock? Where did the peacock go? Because you have that energy to you despite being in sort of a hermit space. And so it's really about just like stepping into self and putting yourself out there. I do not remember. Hold on, let me check time. If I did, I don't know if I did. Was that the why? Y'all, I get caught up in channeling and then I'm like, was that the why or was that the how? Honestly though, in this piece, I feel like how to move forward is sort of I kind of can already just channel that in or just express it from this, you know, how to move forward. Obviously is going to be to put yourself out there more and to, we talked a lot about in the other previous readings too about baby steps, okay? Understanding that in a baby step, there is sort of that little, you know, there's like a knot in this like dainty chain, right? And you got to pick at it and then eventually it'll unravel. And that's how a behavioral pattern is sort of unraveled. I think there's something that you have to offer. And I think you already know that in this space, group 3, that there is something about you that you have to sort of put out into the world, but there's a lot of fear specifically around what other people will think. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that you tend to validate self in the opinions of others, or it's like if someone is validating you, then you feel comfortable. If someone is like combating you or disagrees with you, then it's like it can really knock, and that, I mean, that's for many of us, it can knock us off balance. But for you, it's like you almost would shift your own way of thinking or your innate way of thinking if someone disagrees with you, and maybe change how you operate if someone it's almost like being very easily influenced, whereas it's almost as though the space that you need to step into here would be sort of the influencer, right? And it doesn't mean that you have to be like an influencer on social media or anything like that, but know that there are things that it's just that you've been sort of in this sidekick energy, or it's actually it's being again like the main character energy operating as a sidekick. And so there's something that you maybe are wanting to put out there, or something that you want to express that you just kind of hold yourself back from expressing your truth in some capacity. And so obviously the step forward then for that is going to be for you to start working on what you can do for self that is just for you, and it doesn't matter what anyone thinks of it. All right, group 3. We don't usually dive in to shadow work too often. A lot of the readings are a little bit lighthearted, or a little bit more lighthearted than this, but it was recently requested, so I decided to go ahead and dive into it. If this resonates with you, if you could like and subscribe to my channel, I'd appreciate it. Leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for being here, group 3. All right, I'm going to take a little break. I'll be right back. Hello, group 4. I took a little break. I should have just sat down first, but I got so excited. I just pulled your card out. If you saw on the Instagram post that I had actually intended on only doing 3 energies in this space, and I had put together the entire post. Actually, I had already taken all the pictures. I'd already wrote down all of the channeled messages. I was essentially going to post, and it was like, oh, well, you need to tell them there might be a pile 4. I'm like, well, I can't do that. Is there going to be a pile 4 or what? You know, it was like, I felt like really called that I had to do another energy. And so I had to start, I had to do all the pictures over, and then had to go and write another channeled message because the owl came out. And it was interesting because the message in this space had a lot to do with self-doubt, but it was specifically self-doubt surrounding gifts that we have, or spiritual gifts, or trusting sort of our intuition, or trusting our connection with energy, trusting sort of spiritual gifts. It's kind of like in this space. So this would be like tarot readers would be in this space, or anyone who has sort of like any kind of clairvoyance or clairsentience, or in clairsentience, really, I feel like is just deep empath energy. If you feel like, I have come to find, collective 4, that I used to doubt my intuition all the time. And then I started reading energy and reading people that I actually knew. And once I read people I knew and the energy came up, and they were like, and I was like, oh, okay. So then I built into an awareness that I actually understood energy really, really well. And I didn't have that until, it's easy for, I think, strangers to kind of come in and be like, oh my goodness, I resonate with this. But when you read someone that you know personally, or that you've known for an extended period of time, and you because I always question myself the most in that space, when I know someone and then they're like, oh my gosh, this resonated. I'm like, okay, there's something to this then. So I don't know if that's just some advice for you if you are an energy reader. But okay, so let's get into what the blockages are. I really do feel like it's just like, I think I really feel like we've already kind of tackled what the blockages are. It's sort of funny because in your space, it's almost as though I don't even need these cards to be like, okay, well, this is what it is. This is why it is. And this is what you need to do. Because I really do feel that it's just all surrounding self-doubt. Okay, so what I do feel, it's sort of, I think we're just going to do a really quick reading for you, group 4, and I'm sorry, I don't want to like jip you out of this space. But the interesting thing is that, so this, in terms of self-doubt, okay, I don't think that you have self-doubt surrounding everything. I think it's more self-doubt when it is something that, how do I want to say, when it's a space that you feel like you have to prove yourself to someone else, then there's like quite a bit of, hold on, self-doubt in that space. What came out here? 6 of Wands fell out, and so did the 5 of Cups. But this self-doubt has a lot to do more so with, it's just things that are sort of off the beaten path, okay? So it doesn't necessarily mean that in this space you have to be somebody who has spiritual gifts. It just, I think a lot of people that are tapping into this, but it's like when it's something that I would say deviates from what is considered middle of the road or deviates from what is considered normal, then it puts you in this space of self-doubt, because it's about acceptance, okay? It's about, but here's the thing, is you have to recognize to group 4 that in spaces in which you are moving in an unorthodox space, or you are off the beaten path, or you're just not in a space of feeling like you fit in, then I mean, then it moves into acceptance that you most likely stand out, and that there are things about you that are just going to be different and that deviate from the sort of standard of the world around you. And one of those things could arguably be working with energy, being an energy worker, being a tarot reader, or even it doesn't have to be that though. And I'm getting that some of you tapping into the space are not in that. So this could be this could be just like people expecting you to work a 9-to-5 job and you wanting to be an entrepreneur. It can be that too. It can be wanting to work for yourself and not wanting to work in a factory. You know, it's kind of all of those things, right? And I feel that everybody should be entrepreneurs personally, but I understand that that would mean that nobody would be our consumers. So I get that there are just some of us who are and some of us who aren't. But I think that you feel a sense of obligation in this space to sort of fit into a standard that you stand out in. Also in this space, like you have developed a lot of wisdom along the way. It's sort of like, I don't, you know, depending on age, but it doesn't really matter about age. It's giving the energy of having lived a long life in this space and having gathered a lot of information on the way and knowing a lot and really having a wisdom about the way you operate in the world around you, and really having something that I feel in this space you could have to offer the world around you, because you do stand out. Interestingly enough is that all reading I've been pulling out the elephant in the room, and for this space I feel like the elephant in the room is you. I feel like you stand out in this space. You stand out automatically, and you are already in a space that sort of, even if you're operating in the standards zone, okay, even if you're doing the 9-to-5 grind, even if you're in that space of being just like in this quote unquote normal space, right? I feel like even in that space, there's something just about you as a person that stands out, because you are in this energy that does have something about you that is a bit different. And I think that it is just a whole lot about trusting self in this space. And I feel like this self-doubt has a lot to do with recognizing that by choosing yourself in this scenario and walking away from these sort of belief systems, you are choosing a path of going out and into a zone in which there are not a lot of people in that space with you. And I would argue that if you put yourself out there in that space, you would actually find more like-minded people who do operate that way. But that's just me, just because I've had that experience for myself. All right, so let's get into the why of this. I feel like we have tackled the why. Why is this a limiting belief? You could have really just been made to feel that, honestly, it feels like there is some kind of system surrounding you, or some sort of way of thinking. It's almost as though you just weren't accepted for who you are. And so now when you're in this space, here's that blasted tower. It's literally called that in this deck. shoot, I messed up my channeling because that darn blasted tower, of course. But this could have something, it could be surrounding connections in particular. Connections are the catalyst to growth. So this could have been a connection that you had that really it's sort of as though you were in this space in a certain connection, probably in your past, that really had this like this idea of who you were and how they wanted you to be and who they wanted to kind of mold you into. And so they just didn't necessarily accept you for who you are. It was kind of like wanting you to be something that you're not. And maybe they could have even like supported you, right? But they also they made comments or did things, they made it known they disagreed with your lifestyle. And I think this would be somebody that would be really important to you. And so that has some kind of impact, like some psychologically, right? Some kind of deeper impact on then really trusting self, especially trusting intuition and trusting really that you as a person are just you could actually get into this Nine of Pentacles energy by really trusting whatever it is about you that just kind of makes you stand out. This is leadership energy anyway. And I just said to my best friend the other day, actually, she was talking about something and she was like mulling over it. And I was like, well, here's the problem. You are having a CEO problem and a CEO mindset from the vantage point of an employee. And so, it's like you are viewing this situation from a space of having far more knowledge than the position in which you're viewing it from. And I feel like that is existent in this space as well, is that there is something about you that if you just tapped into it and followed it, it could be really abundant for you, but it will take you having to sort of step off the beaten path. And again, this could very well be spiritual gifts here and trusting intuition. That's another thing, doubting our own gifts. Okay, so the next spot is actually the how. And I think you actually know what to do here in this space. So I don't think that there's any it's not necessary to do a reading at the end, because what you're going to need to do in this space is step into your own authenticity, is begin trusting self and begin understanding what the limiting beliefs and blockages realistically are. Is it that you just don't want all eyes on you? You may actually resonate into the peacock reading as well, which is right before yours, for this space, because I do feel like they're sort of connected in this way. It's just that the owl, the owl is sitting in a space of really having a knowing that they are in the wrong place and having a lot of knowledge and wisdom and just not trusting the path forward, or because there's structure that they would have to sort of break down. You as the owl in this space may be so used to sort of systematic ways, okay, routines even, and operating in a space is just it's first we do step 1, then we do step 2, then we do step 3, and then it's very just structured. And the pathway out into this space of sort of the unorthodox is really it questions structures, it questions routines, it sort of puts you in a space where you don't have a plan, so you don't know what to do, and then so you just stay stuck, because even though you have all this internalized and all these things and all this wisdom, you don't know how to operate in the realm of using sort of the fluidity within creativity to operate. And so you kind of are almost, it's interesting because you have self-doubt here, but I feel like something that you need to relinquish in this space is actually self-control and moving into surrender and sort of accepting or even attacking what it is, and then just taking those baby steps to kind of like dip your toes in the water a little bit. You don't have to go way outside of your system of structure, which is, I think, a safety space for you, and then fly your wings. You know, you can very like, you know, you can just kind of peek in. And this is a nocturnal animal, you know, so it kind of moves in the dark a little bit for a while. So you have that, you know, you can dip your toes into it, I think, group 4. All right, if this resonated in with you, please do like and subscribe to my channel. Not all of the readings are about shadow work. Many of them are a little bit lighter than this. We do often talk about connections in this space, or especially the connection with self. So if that sounds like your cup of tea or your cup of coffee, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for being here, group 4. Enjoy the rest of your day.